I have a tendency to attract a specific kind of client to my practice. It's the person who is the high achiever. They have the gifts, the skills, the competency, the credentials, and yet there's something missing. Yet for all they've accomplished, there's still this empty feeling inside. That's what I want to talk about today.
Hey, tell me more.
They're either on the precipice of burnout or they're in the thick of it. The burnout isn't the result of overwork or doing too much. The burnout is the result of not knowing who they are once they stop doing. Their entire identities have been built not as who they are, but what they do. And so they spend their lives climbing the mountain, being career focused, which isn't a bad thing. But then they reach the top of that mountain and they're like, what else is there? This is the focus of David Brooks's book, The Second Mountain. It's that we spend our lives climbing the mountain of success, building the things, dedicating everything to it, sacrificing relationships, sacrificing years, only to get to the top and go, is this it? It's like Tom Brady winning, all of those Super Bowl rings and thinking, I thought I would feel more.
Why do I have 3 Super Bowl rings and still think there's something greater out there for me? I mean, maybe a lot of people would say, hey man, this is what it is. I reached my goal, my dream, my life is me. I think, God, it's got to be more than this. I mean, this can't be what it's all cracked up to be. I mean, I've done it. I'm 27, and what else is there for me?
What's the answer?
I wish I knew.
It's Jim Carrey saying, I hope everyone gets rich and famous so that they can find out that this isn't all there is. It's Michael Jordan not being satisfied with life, despite being arguably the greatest of all time. There has to be more. David Brooks contends in his book, The Second Mountain, that once we reach this mountain peak, we get 2 choices. We can either keep climbing and trying to find the next mountain, trying to get more, or we can climb a different mountain. A mountain that is built around purpose and clarity and relationships and love, where our identities are built not around what we do, but who we are in here. My contention is that you don't have to wait until you hit burnout. You don't have to wait till you get to the top of the empty mountain to start climbing that second one now. We live in a culture that treats productivity like it's an identity. So when you ask people, hey, how you doing? The response is often busy. Busy like it's a badge of honor. When we meet new people, one of the first questions we ask is, what do you do? As though the most important thing about them is their vocation. When what you do is who you are, you develop your entire identity around that thing. It becomes the source of your self-esteem, of your esteem in general, the source of your highs and your lows. And this means you've got to work harder, you've got to do more, you got to climb as high as you can, because if you don't, then who are you? Here's where this gets dangerous. If work is your entire identity, then what will you do to protect it? Who will you hurt in order to maintain your position and your status, in order to be seen as that person? Who will you step on? What will you sacrifice? Ambition is not a problem. I like to believe that I'm a fairly ambitious guy. It's why I do this stuff. It's why I'm building what I'm building. The problem is that a career makes a terrible foundation on which to build your life. A title is not an identity. Nothing that can be so easily taken away from us should be the thing that defines us. And this is true beyond work. If it's the neighborhood you live in, if it's the house you own, the car you drive, if it's the relationships, nothing that is so fragile should be the thing that sits at the seat of your heart. Because what do you do when the role changes? when the recognition disappears, when the industry passes you by, when someone better comes along. Work as identity is way, way too fragile. And I'm gonna argue that this is less of an individual problem and it's more of a cultural one, because we live and we swim in waters that think that work is all that there is. Especially for me as a New Yorker, where our lives are oriented around our jobs and our careers, where people move here because they want to reach the top of their industries. This is a cultural and systemic problem that the individual pays the price for. There's a name that I can give to this. It's identity instability. See, most of my clients, they don't look like they're going through an existential crisis. They are high capacity people. They still show up on time. They still do all the things. They still get the job done. They still meet every deadline. They live an ordinary, high functioning life. But identity instability looks like needing to be needed. It looks like discomfort and stillness. It is a life that is surrounded by noise. Identity instability always have to have something going on, because you don't know who you are when you stop doing it. You just have to be. Identity instability looks like taking feedback too personally or not seriously enough. It's living and dying with every critique, or looking at the person handling you the critique and going, who are you to speak about me? What do you know? Identity instability is attaching your worth to outcomes that are beyond your control. So you work later, you work harder, you do more, you put your fingers into everything because you're trying to control the thing that you can't control. And the sad part is that most people don't realize that they're in this place until it's too late. They never see it coming until the breakdown hits their front door. And this is the moment where they realize that they haven't exactly built a life yet. Can I be honest? I've been here. My own identity instability has looked like the inability to say no. It's looked like chasing every new and exciting project and venture. My default, right? If I'm offended, if I'm scared, if I'm frustrated, whatever, my default's to work harder. So my identity instability has looked like a lot of sleepless nights full of fake productivity, doing just enough to move the ball forward, but nothing's really happening. It's a bunch of unfinished manuscripts and tequila and lament about not being paid enough. If I'm being really honest and open with you. Because I'm looking and I'm thinking, well, if I were truly good and worthy and valuable, then the numbers on the paycheck would match that. If I am not just what I produce, if I'm not just the outcome, then who am I? It's being in terrible, toxic work situations and thinking, well, I just need to work harder to get myself out of here. And then I work really hard to get myself out. But then I'm like, well, I'm not being paid enough. And am I good? It's way too much. An identity that is built on work and productivity is such a rocky foundation. But what's a solid one? What does a solid foundation look like? Here's the thing that I don't think anybody really tells us. You are not going to stumble into a stable identity. It is one that you have to build. Because if you don't, then you're going to default to the factory settings. And what I mean is, your identity will be determined by the waters that you swim in. Where I live, people, they attend 1 of 5 colleges and they study 1 of 3 majors, and then they go live in the city and they work in 1 of 3 fields, and they get married and they have their first kid. You stay in the city for your first kid, but by the time that second one rolls around, you're moving back to the suburbs where you live in 1 of 5 towns, and you drive a certain kind of car, and you raise your kids in certain activities, and you do certain hobbies on the weekend. And I don't know if anyone has ever really looked up and said, do I want any of this? Do I want to live here? Do I want to pay these taxes? Do I care about this kind of car? Or am I just doing what people around me do? Those are the factory settings, where you're just floating through life and your identity is not one that you've decided for yourself, but it's the one that's been handed to you. most people aren't thinking about who they are. They're just doing what their people do. But if you take the time to build an identity and escape the trappings of your world, then you're building something that's centered around your values, your real values, the ones that you default to under pressure. Like, there's this great saying, what is in you is going to be the thing that comes out of you. And you only truly know what's in you in moments of conflict and in moments of pressure. When your back is against the wall, when you're hurt and when you're offended. All the things that you post and you claim to believe and you say, this is who I am, conflict and pressure show whether or not that's true. So we would all say that we're people of justice, right? Like, we care about us. Not all of us, most of us would say we're people of justice and we care about others. But is that true when it hits your front door? We're sacrificing something for yourself where it costs you something so that someone else can have. That's when you know if you're really about that justice life or not. If that's really a value of yours. See, your values are the things that you hold on to, even if they might cost you something. We all put our families high on the list of our priorities. Like we value our families. They come first, of course. But will you turn down that promotion if it means less time with your kids? This is what we write on paper, and this is what we do. So your identity needs to be built around your values, your real values. But your identity also needs to be built around your relationships. We are communal creatures. And I'm talking about the relationships that exist outside of your performance. This is the difference. We need friends. Please go get some friends if you don't have any. But it's the people who knew you back then. The people who knew you before the title. The people who knew you before the success. The people who knew you pre-burnout. The people who, whether or not you have the job, are still going to be there. We need friendships disconnected from performance. Friendships that exist and people who love us simply because of who we are. Now also, build your identity around your inner narrative. You're gonna have to decide what your inner narrative is. The story that you tell to yourself about yourself. The inner narrative is where you decide who you are and what you're for. So that goes back to those values, but it also goes back to those people that you were with. Because that old adage is true, right? We're like the 5 people we spend the most time with. And those people will often help determine our values, and they'll often be the loudest voices that are speaking to us, that are help driving that inner narrative in some ways. But that inner narrative is the place that you live from. And the last thing you're going to need to do is define your practices. The daily rhythms that connect you back to your inner values, that connect you back to the inner narrative, that can connect you back to your people. Now, whatever those rhythms are, they are the things that center you. Whether they're prayer, they're meditation, they're journaling, these are the things that bring you back. And the truth is, we don't default into any of these. You don't just land here. This is the life that you build for yourself, brick by brick. It takes intentionality and it takes purpose. It takes, what is it they say in the fitness world where it's like, motivation means nothing, discipline is everything. These are disciplines. It's the things you do when you don't feel like doing them. They're also the memory stones. They're the things that bring you back. But a part of that is having grace for yourself. I would love to say to you that everything that I believe and value shows up perfectly in my life and how I live. It's just not the case. We all have a gap between what we say and what we do. The question is, when you're confronted with the incongruency that shows up in your life, what do? Do you double down? Do you dig your heels in? Or can you recognize those gaps and say, I'm committed to doing better. I'm committed to getting closer to the ideal version of myself. You see, who you are as a leader starts in here. It starts with the stories you tell yourself about yourself. It starts with the values that you've decided you're going to live. It starts with your daily practice. It starts with the people you've let into this place. You don't land on good leadership. You don't land on personal mastery by accident. You land there with intention. It's always a leadership question, isn't it? Because chances are you are responsible for leading somebody somewhere. Whether it's your family, your friends, maybe a rec league, or some people at work, maybe it's a church group, somebody is looking to you for leadership. And you can't be the leader they need if you haven't figured things out for yourself. Becoming the best version of you is not solely for you. We don't live these lives in a vacuum, in isolation, simply to make ourselves better. Our highest good, the best we can do, is in service of others. A part of what we do is we bring psychological safety to others, but we cannot do that if we're not stable enough to remain regulated under pressure. And the only way we're able to remain regulated under pressure and perhaps avoid some of that burnout is by doing the inner work. You can't model emotional health for anybody if your identity is tied to being the most capable one in the room. And this is not in my notes. This is just something I'm thinking of in this moment. But I have seen far too many people watch videos like this, read posts like this, read the books, get the coaches, pay for the mentoring and all of that so they can cosplay being an emotionally healthy person. Who are you serving with that? Where you know all the tools and the right way to speak and the right way to show up and the way to dress and all the practices you're supposed to inhabit so you can look the part. That's a different level of insecurity and immaturity and brokenness that I don't want to see any of you watching this do. Instead of cosplaying being a better person, just be that person. For your sake and for the sake of others. Identity work is frustrating and it is difficult. I can admit that. I've read a million books, I've had the coaches, I've done the directors, and the common misconception is that identity work is navel-gazing. It's not. The goal isn't to focus solely on yourself and be the best version of you. I said it before and I'll say it again. Our best lives are lived in the service of others. We grow so that we can help others grow, so that we can help other people be the best version of themselves. You see, a stable identity, one that isn't built on fragile and shallow ground, is one that recognizes that the universe, that life does not begin and end with you, and that you are a part of something much larger and much bigger, and often it's just the person next to you. We all don't need these massive platforms and need to be famous and super rich. There are people right around you who love you and care for you and are looking to you. Some of the happiest people in the world who live the most full lives. You will never know their names. They don't have a lot of money, but they experience a level of joy and satisfaction that comes from knowing who they are and loving the people around them. There's a fullness to that kind of life. Pouring from an empty cup is this metaphor that we all know. But the deeper problem, it's not the cup being empty. It's knowing what the cup is for. When you know who you are outside of what you produce, you stop leading from scarcity and you start leading from abundance. But we're not born with this. This is a skill we develop over time, slowly and on purpose and with help. That's the thing about living in a vacuum. You see, again, when I think about these people who they cosplay emotional health, it's often because they're doing it in isolation. And so they look at you and they tell you, I've read the books, I have the directors, I'm more loving, I'm more joyful, I'm more patient, I'm more peaceful, I'm all the things. And in reality, no one lies to you more than you. And when you're sitting in a hole by yourself doing the work, you never actually get that work tested. And the only way we can know that the things have moved from here to here, from our heads to our hearts, where we're actually changed and our behavior shows up differently, is in relationship with others. It's how you show up under conflict and how you show up under pressure when you're offended or when you're hurt or when your leadership is challenged. Are you actually more loving, more joyful, more patient, more peaceful, more kind? Or did you just tell yourself that? And pressure and conflict simply expose that you are not who you think you are. So my encouragement to you, whenever it is that you are watching this, is that this is work that is not done in isolation. And people, coaches like me, can help you work out those hard things. We'll do it together so that when you get back into your life with your people, you're not spilling out your brokenness all over them. Now, normally I would do some funny quip about, oh, hey, you're probably watching this and you don't think you need it. But for real, I've seen far too many people ruin their lives and ruin their relationships because they never did this work. Don't let that be you. No, really, I know about this, even though I'm just some guy